Hey, Greg here. Did you know that I've created a few walking tours of Bangkok? Using the GPS on your phone, the routes take you through some of my favorite areas of the city, exploring the fascinating neighborhoods and hidden history that give Bangkok its sweet, sweet mojo. Head to voicemap.me and search for Bangkok. On this episode, we take a cue from the insane heat right now to look back on some other superlative memories of Bangkok.
So if you've ever thought to yourself that Bangkok brings out the best, worst, or most of anything, you'll dig this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 to preach the gospel of the Canadian tuxedo, but has found it a bit frustrating that it hasn't caught on yet.
Yeah, that's going to be a stretch. And I met Kenneth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 23 years ago, fell in love with trying to figure out how to communicate the appropriate level of spiciness to waiters and waitresses in Thailand at Thai restaurants, so I never left.
That's funny. You need like a little chart. You remember that Family Guy chart where the guy like compares his skin color to determine if someone's a terrorist or something?
Actually, I never saw that, but that's funny.
Oh, it's great. You should have one with just like different expressions, little photos of you just looking normal to like your face is all red with steam coming out of your ears.
Well, listeners out there, the problem, if you haven't experienced it, is that you can tell a Thai server that you want something not spicy at all, and then when it comes, it will clearly have spice in it, Yeah. Or you can say, pet neat diao, like just a little spicy, and then you get it, and it's not a little, it's a lot spicy, so it
blows your face off.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to figure out. You almost have to say, I want something a little spicy for farongs, you almost have to have like a farong scale, so this
you have to add some context in there.
That's right. It's funny on the bonus show I talked about my trip up to Mat Kompong, this small town that you've actually been to before, but I had this experience where I ordered like a pomelo salad, and I said pet
love that.
Pet neat diao, and it was blazing. And I'm just, I'm trying to figure out like what is the really hot,
That's It
was just
like, you
blazing.
say like I don't want it spicy at all, and the chef is like, well, only an idiot would want no spice.
Yeah,
so he must clearly mean
so
3.
If you say no spice at all, to them that means 3 chilies.
Yeah, right.
That's how they interpret it.
Our friend John, he likes his coffee with no sweeteners at all, like none.
Right.
And he for the longest time he would say not sweet, and they'd be like, well, he must mean just a little sweet.
That's right.
So he finally had to make a special effort to learn the Thai for like, I don't want anything extra at all, period.
It's the same thing. When it comes to spiciness, you really have to be very clear. And my problem is I like spicy food, but not the crazy hot, Thai level of spiciness. So it's very hard for me to moderate it and get what I want. But it is what it is.
The project is ongoing.
Yep. We want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about the insane heat that everyone in Southeast Asia is dealing with right now, my experience in a tiny village up north shooting stills for a movie, and Greg's weekend on Koh Samet, which he calls the McDonald's of Thai Islands, a Facebook post that recounts a bizarre request from a Thai policeman to a woman who was trying to apply for Thai citizenship, and a story about a Brit in Thailand who was reprimanded by the police for posting videos that were critical of Thailand, serving as a reminder that Big Brother in brown is always watching.
Mm-hmm.
To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
Yeah, and we also have to start the show with a bit of bad news. One of Bangkok's most well-known residents, Colin Hastings, passed away in a car accident last week. Colin was the editor of the ubiquitous Big Chili magazine, and if you've lived in Bangkok for any length of time, you almost certainly knew him, or at the very least, knew of him. Ed, did you ever meet Colin?
I don't think I met him. I mean, of course, I could have met him in passing, but I definitely knew who he was. I mean, he's on the list of expats everyone knows.
Yeah, totally. And I actually worked quite closely with him years ago, back when I was just a young punk kid. I wrote for Big Chili, for over like 6 or 8 years on and off. And he was always very, very nice to me and very, very cool, and offered a lot of guidance and help in my early days. So he was a great guy, and it's really, really sad to hear of his accident.
Agreed.
So condolences to his family from us, and let's take this as a reminder to reach out to friends you haven't talked to in a while.
For sure. For sure.
All right, on this episode, we take a cue from this brutal heat wave right now for a show that may very well turn into a series that we're calling Thai Superlatives. As a reminder, a superlative is a word or phrase expressing the highest degree of comparison, which is something that I totally knew and didn't have to look up. Anyway, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that this past week has been the hottest or near the hottest we've ever experienced in our decades in Thailand, which got us to wondering what other superlatives we could use as we look back on our lives here. The biggest, the worst, the most whatever. As we all know, Bangkok is a city that somehow manages to bring out the superlative in most any situation. So we've each picked a memory for which a superlative is definitely warranted. Ed, what do you think of this show?
You know, at first I was thinking, I'm not sure I got anything, superlatives, that's a little bit vague. But then the more I brainstormed, and I think about, my biggest surprise I've experienced in Thailand, or my worst day, or I think I agree. Like over the years, you and I have a lot of experiences, so I've come around. I like this challenge. So I think each of us have. I think I have 3, or you might have 4. So I like this kind of challenge to come up with 3 or 4 extreme experiences in Thailand, and then talking about them.
Yeah, I think so too. And I also think too, like a little bit of introspection here. Some of the feedback we get from our listeners is interesting. And they say that a lot of times we hear that they want to hear more stories from us about our time here.
Oh, okay.
And, without yanking our respective chains, or you yanking mine or me yanking yours, after 23 years, I think we've earned a little bit of street cred. And it's nice to be able to share that and pass that on, We've earned our stars in Bangkok, and I think it's fun to talk about the old days and the lessons we've learned over those times.
For sure. Let's do it.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through each. I'm going to do one, and then Ed's going to do one. I don't know what he's chosen. He doesn't know what I've chosen. But we've each chosen 4 superlatives, the most whatever. Ed, do you want me to go first?
Sure, why not?
All right. Well, I was thinking back about something that is definitely a very intense memory for me, and this is the most scared I've ever been in Thailand.
Okay.
When I was here.
I've got one like that too.
So this is something that happened years ago, and I was not on a work permit, and I was just sort of going month by month, doing the tourist visa thing. And word got out that there was this place in Bangkok that was down the end of a soy, which was down to the end of another soy, that would give you a 1-year non-B visa for X number of baht.
Gotcha.
And I was like, all right. And I knew a bunch of people who had done it. And I said, okay, good. So I went down and I met this random dude at this random place, and I gave him my passport. And a week later, I had my passport back with a non-year B visa.
Oh, nice.
And that means that I could stay in Bangkok, stay in Thailand without having to do these annoying border runs every month.
Right.
But as I used up my passport pages, as I was just traveling around, I used up all the space in my passport, and I had to go to the Canadian embassy to get a new passport.
Gotcha.
And you have to go into this little room and like swear in front of an affidavit in front of an official that blah, 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 blah. And the first thing she said to me was, she looked at my passport and she flipped through a few pages and she said, "This visa is counterfeit, isn't it?"
Oh, I know. Okay. Now I remember you telling the story before, but I wonder how did she know it was counterfeit? Do you know?
I don't know, man. Some bureaucratic mojo that you and I don't have. Maybe there's a secret, like invisible ink stamp or something. But
I'm sure you probably suspected that it wasn't totally on the up and up. But this kind of thing where you pay someone, you never know exactly what they're doing. So, yeah, I wouldn't say that you know for sure the stamp isn't valid. You might just wonder how they got the stamp. You know what I mean?
Okay, fair enough. That's a very lawyer thing to say, and that's basically what I said. And I think how she knew was the stamp was done. It was done in the UK.
Oh, okay.
Probably someone's cousin worked at somewhere, had a stamp or something like that.
Oh, I see.
But there was no entry and exit stamp for the UK or Europe.
Oh,
Or
I see. Okay. Okay.
So
Right.
she's like, the passport's been to the UK, but you haven't been to the UK.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And I was all like, what? I don't understand. Just playing stupid. I thought like lots of people do this. I thought this was totally cool. And
Oh, that is kind of scary. So at that moment, you weren't sure exactly what you might not be able to stay in Thailand, or you didn't know what the consequences were going to be.
dude, I was freaking out. I was new at the time. I'd only been here for God, a year, maybe a year and a half at the time. I didn't know if the police were going to come in. I didn't know if I was ever
Right.
going to be able to leave the embassy, like go right to the detention cell.
Right. Right.
I didn't know if I was going to be blacklisted or deported. So I was freaking out. I was really, really
That's rough.
nervous
That is rough.
and scared. But happily, basically, I just had to pay a ton of money. I got dinged on my passport. They gave me like a baby passport that was only good for like 3 years instead of 10 or whatever it was.
You mean a baby passport? It was like smaller than a normal passport?
No, I mean it was like a junior idiot passport for morons that tried to skirt the system and to break the rules.
Oh, so it's kind of like probation. You were kind of put on a probation or something like that.
Yes, that's a much better way to put it. But anyway, it all worked out in the end, and that was a very good lesson for me. I definitely learned since then. I have done everything I can above board in Thailand.
Sure.
Because I was really, really scared at that
Okay.
moment.
No, I like that. That is definitely a superlative.
Yeah.
So I might as well follow with my. So our superlatives don't match. This is kind of listeners. This is kind of random. But since you did your scariest, I'll do my scariest. But my scariest is different.
Okay.
My scariest experience is scary in a different way than yours. My scariest experience was when I was. I think I was already engaged to my then future wife. We were either engaged or engaged to be engaged, and I was working at my university, and while I was teaching, the kind of one of the secretaries kind of broke into my class and said, Ed, you've got a really important phone call in the office, or there's some emergency kind of thing, which is never good. And I was immediately thinking, worried about my parents, but that probably didn't make too much sense because I'm here in Thailand. I don't think, but for some reason, it's kind of what I would think in the States, if I was.
Well, yeah, and as also as an expat, we all have to deal with that reality that we are all going to get that call one day.
Right.
So,
okay. In this case, I don't think it probably would have gone to my office here at the university. But then I get on the phone in the office, and it's it was my future sister-in-law, my girlfriend's fiance's sister, and she didn't speak English that well back then. She's actually fine now, but back then she didn't have very good English, and she basically just said that Ing, my ex-fiance, my fiance, she said, Ing motorbike accident.
Oh no.
And that's like the three words you don't want to hear. Like you're a person you care about, and motorbike accident. That's what you don't.
Oh yeah.
You don't want to hear. And so of course I was totally shocked. And so I said, "What happened?" And she said, "It's bad."
Oh God.
And it was a nightmare.
Shit.
It was a complete nightmare. And then she tried to explain where the hospital was. I didn't understand, so I had to give it to a Thai person in the office, and they're doing the translation, and they explain where it is. And it was a little bit far away from where I teach, so it probably took me about 45 minutes to get there. And man, it was a brutal 45 minutes because
I bet, man. That's
all I knew. That is all I knew. Motorbike
bad.
accident, it's bad. And listeners out there, I'm sure you can probably figure this out, but motorcycle and motorbike accidents, they're just inherently worse than car accidents because you don't have the protection of like a steel frame around you.
Totally.
And so the injuries from motorbike accidents are horrendous. I mean, people can slide on pavement. It's just it's horrific. And so all these images and all these things were going through my head, and I don't know if she's crippled, if she's going to die. it was just brutal. And I'll tell you this, I honestly don't want to talk about this too much because it's upsetting, but I'll just tell you the weirdness of when I walked in the room and saw her injury, which was quite severe. It was one of the weirdest feelings of my life because she looked horrible. She looked like someone hit her in the face with a baseball bat. I don't want to talk. I don't even want to talk about it. Like massive hematoma on like the side of her cheekbone, like huge.
Oh, Jesus.
And then, but when I saw that like all the skin wasn't scraped off her face, or that she wasn't crippled, it's like it was one of the weirdest experiences of my life because her face is triple its size, and I had the weirdest reaction where I was like, "Oh, thank God."
But like she's got both her arms, both her legs.
That's right. That it was one of the weirdest reactions. Like my reaction was like, "Oh dear God, my sweetheart." Like she's so cute, and like just to see her injured that way, it's so painful. But then part of me was like, "Jesus, thank God."
Like that's all it is. Okay, good. Yeah.
So it's probably definitely my scariest experience.
Wow.
Like just kind of the worst thing that's happened.
Now that would be terrifying anywhere, but what about living in Bangkok as an expat who doesn't speak Thai? Like that must have been another layer of like
brutal.
Fear.
And I mean, she wasn't, it was about a year long. I don't want to tell the whole story, but it was like a year long recovery. Wow. It was rough, and you were around back then, like you know what was going on, but definitely my, like as a whole experience, like my worst in Thailand for sure.
Yeah, that is terrifying, and being outside of the sphere of the information that's flowing freely is like another layer of fear and terror.
It was brutal
because you're just like, everyone keep me updated, and there has to be someone here who can explain it properly and clearly so I understand it. Yeah.
Right.
Yikes, man. Yikes.
All right. What else you got? All
right. I'll go. And I promise they're not all negative ones here. We got some positive ones, but this is another negative one for me. But, I mean, living in a new culture, in a new country is not easy all the time. And there are moments when we find ourselves down in the dumps, or blue, or low, as some are wont to say. So this one is the lowest I've ever been in Thailand. And I think generally you and I are pretty positive, and we've had fairly above board good experiences here throughout our time. But I remember this being the singularly lowest moment of my life in Thailand.
Okay.
And it was one particular day, a week before this, my grandfather had died. And he and I were very close. And I got a call from my mom, and she was crying, and she said, Dad passed away. And we knew it was coming, but still, I was back at this time I was broke. I didn't have any money. I couldn't just jump on a plane and go back. Sure. So I wasn't able to go back for his funeral or anything like that. This was in probably 2004, 2005. So there was no Facebook, there was no FaceTime, there was no, easy video calls from your mobile phone. So it was very at a distance. So I was already bummed out and upset. And then I got fired from my job.
Oh shit.
which I won't go into. But I remember walking up the soy. I left the job when I was told I wasn't there employed anymore. And I was walking up the soy just going, well, what the hell do I do now? I have no money. I have no job.
Well, I'm still young. You're just like, well,
I guess so.
Well, I'm healthy.
I'm healthy as far as I know, but it was just, I remember just like as a really, really big 1-2 punch.
Brutal.
And I had no prospects. I had no idea what was going to happen next. And I'm like, is this a sign from the universe? Should I just pull the plug and head back to Canada and just
that's right.
say to hell with it, And I was just really, really, really bummed out. That's about all I have to say about that. I remember that walking up the soy thinking like, should I just
again, that's also experience. That's also compounded when you're an expat, because if that happened back in Calgary, you would call one of your buddies up and go hang out, and everything would seem okay, even though if you just lost your job, you'd be hanging out with your friend who's known you for 20 years, and he'd be like, "Dude, come on, whatever, you'll get over it." But yeah, you're right. Over here, it is different. When the bad luck comes, it's just the support network. You and I have done okay support network wise, but it's still not the same as it would be back home.
Just that level of comfort, that level of like being cradled by your your homies, your support network, like
Yeah.
you said, is different. It's just not the same.
No doubt, no doubt.
Yeah. So thankfully, I recovered, and here we are.
All right. On a somewhat lighter note, I will talk about I think this is my strangest experience, and by strange I mean that when I remember this, I still kind of can't believe it happened, and I still it's just weird. Like oddly, it dovetails to something we talked about on the bonus show about some weird government requirements for women who want to be citizens. But in my case, it was when I was applying for permanent residency, and I got a reduced rate because I was married, legally married in Thailand. But then the government has to verify that you were married because you get a reduced rate, and of course. Worldwide, there is kind of a general problem of fake marriages. People have fake marriages to try to get in the U.S., et cetera. But I didn't know. I heard that the Thai government was going to verify that I was married, but I didn't know anything about how they were going to do that. It was a random Saturday. It was at home with my wife at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. There was just a knock on the door, which is a little bit odd these days. When someone just comes to your house randomly,
yeah, right?
That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen anymore. And it was two guys from the Thai government who were there to verify that we were married. And so, okay, just initially I'm thinking, okay, this is a little bit weird. But we sat down at the kitchen table, me and my wife and these two guys, and they asked us questions and they're filling out paperwork. And then it just got weirder from there, dude. They were like, can we see your bedroom? And I'm like, what?
Okay.
And I'm like, my wife is chatting with him in Thai, and she's like, they want to see the bedroom. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, So we go upstairs from the bedroom, and then the guys have a shitty early digital camera, and they start taking pictures of the bedroom, and they're asking her questions, and we have separate closets. Like I had my closet, so they're taking pictures of my guy clothes and my guy shoes. And then the guy's like carefully taking pictures of her closet and her girly shoes, like her 50 pairs of shoes, And I'm standing there going, "Wow, this is really odd." But then it just got even odder because I have told this show before. I had told the story before on the show, but they told my wife that they wanted her and I to get in bed so they could take a picture of us, and
Jesus.
So we laid down in the bed fully clothed, and I'm telling her, sweetie, like, is this for real? Like, do they really want to do it? She's like, yeah, just let them do it. And then they took they took the camera out, and we're just lying next to each other fully clothed, and then they say something to her in Thai, and she goes, they want us to hold hands. So it's so unbelievably odd. So we're lying there.
Your mind must have been like, no, what are they going to like? Just unbutton the top two buttons.
No, I'm thinking the whole time, this must be candid camera. They're trolling us.
Right.
Like, can you imagine if these guys had a sense of humor and then they were just like, "Hey, we're just fucking with you. Like, it's not like you don't have to do any of this. This is not required."
Just kidding. But thanks for the photos. Yeah. See ya.
Yeah. So I still consider it my weirdest experience in Thailand. In that, I think back and I'm like, did that really happen? It's so odd.
Do you know those photos are sitting on some hard drive and some?
I would love
somewhere?
to. I never got a copy of the photo. I would pay to get a copy of the photos.
That is weird, man. I mean,
it happened.
Yeah, like
I'm not making that up.
I guess the closet thing seems silly and looking at the shoes and stuff like that, but that is actually a pretty good test to see if it's a legit relationship. Because if you're just trying to scam something and doing it for appearances, you're not going to have an entire wardrobe's worth of clothes in someone's closet.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I guess the government has to do it in some way. I mean, there are a lot of scammers out there, but it was a very odd experience.
I think you would have been like a total expert merit badge if you had gotten the guys to lay in the bed. Okay, now you guys do it and hold hands, just for fun. Just two police laying in your bed.
I wonder what kind of experiences those guys have had. I mean, I wonder if,
my God, do
some people just refuse? I mean, I was taken by surprise by the whole thing, and so I just didn't even know how to react. I was just thinking, like, is this for real? Like, are they joking?
That's great. All right. Well, let me go next with mine. This was the best "F it, let's do it" moment.
Oh, okay.
But I think we've all been in those situations where you're like, you know what, F it, let's do it.
Sure.
And a lot of times it doesn't turn out too well, but sometimes it does. And this is the best experience I've had where I've said, F it, let's do it. And it worked out really well. And this was when I was getting married. And I didn't have a lot of money. Story of my life, didn't have a lot of money. And I was really, really, really trying to keep expenses down. And there are certain things and expectations that are built into Thai weddings. And I was sort of pushing back on it a little bit. And I was sort of like, well, can we cut this part out? And do we need these things? And can we lower, and just one day I had an epiphany where I was like, you know what? I can only say this so many times until my wife's family is going to sort of be like, hey, what's up with this guy here? He's kind of a cheap bastard, Like,
Right.
What's going on here, right? So I just decided to say, you know what? Fuck it, let's do it. Yes to everything. Let's go full steam ahead.
Oh,
and
okay.
And it turned out really, really well. You were at my wedding. You were at the morning ceremony.
Great, good times.
I loved our wedding. I thought it was a really, really great experience, a very good ceremony, a very memorable night. I'm glad you were there. I'm glad everyone was there. And it was just where I just decided to say, okay, let's do it. Let's spend all the money we need to spend and not worry about it. And it was totally worth it. And I think there are limitations to this, of course. I still don't know how people drop $5 million on a big fancy wedding. I think that's a bit too much. But in this case, there was a lot of cultural elements that I just sort of accepted. And I said, okay, let's just bring them on, whatever they are. And
sometimes it's good to just say yes. Just say yes and go for it.
Exactly. And there's a lot of like, oh, I don't know, my culture doesn't really need to do this. And I know my friends are no one's going to care that they get a souvenir if they come to the wedding. I've been to a lot of weddings. I've never once kept one of the souvenirs.
Right.
But I was like, you know what? It's just part of the game. Fuck it, let's do it. And it was great.
No, I have good memories from your wedding, no doubt. So I think it worked.
That was just over 12 years ago. So we must have done something right.
Heck yeah. All right. So my next superlative is my biggest surprise, my biggest shock. And it has to do with when I got my cancer diagnosis. And I'm not going to retell the whole story, but it's just such a weird, odd thing to have a doctor tell you have cancer. It's like you can, once you're an adult and you're reasonably educated, it can happen to anyone, So it's kind of in the realm of possibilities. But I just remember sitting there in the doctor's office. I was in Bumrungrad Hospital, and the doctor in the classic, Thai fashion, they're super Thai doctors are super direct, and he just said, "You have a tumor. We have to cut it out."
Okay.
And I said, "Tumor?" I'm like, "What do you mean by tumor?" And he said, "Cancer." And I just remember
like,
this.
Duh.
Well, I just remember. Really? Like you're just kind of in. At least for me, I was just in disbelief because basically I just had pain. Like so, I went in because I had like pain in my abdomen. So it's just it could be a lot of different things. And then it's like you have a tumor. We have to cut it out. And I'm like, well, what do you mean tumor? And he's like cancer. And
tumor.
Yeah. So I just remember this feeling of just a complete like you gotta be kidding me.
They're looking around for cameras again. Like yesterday, these guys came over to my house and asked me to lay down with my wife. Now you're telling me this?
You're like, what's going on here? This is, and I just remember this can't be true. Like that was,
wow.
I remember just processing it like, no. I remember just, I get, maybe this is a thing of, I guess I'm thinking of like stages of grief or something where I think the first stage is supposed to be denial. And that's exactly how I reacted. Where I was just like, no. I'm just like, no. He's the doctor. He's got test results. He's got all these tests, and I'm like,
you're
no.
Like, let me see those scans.
I'm like, no, that can't be. So it's definitely it's just terms of raw, unexpected, because it just wasn't on the range of things when I went in. I had a certain range of possible diagnoses, and cancer was not one of them. So it's my biggest surprise, my biggest shock.
Wow. Yeah. And then so once you do accept it, you're just like, well, I guess now I'm one of those people that has to deal with this massive life-changing moment.
Yeah.
So the next X weeks or months are going to be
that's right.
that.
Right. But
that's rough, man.
But that gives us stories to tell, man. We got scars.
Literally. Yeah. That's, well, I'm glad it all worked out. So here we are again.
I'm here.
Yeah. All right. My last one. And this is probably a superlative. It's probably not the superlative, but this one is my most Bangkok moment. And there have been a lot of Bangkok moments. I think we've all had them where the night goes fabulously off the rails. But
no doubt.
For some reason, this one just sticks out to me. And I was out around Chinatown with my buddy John. This is a long time ago. Not the John that you and I know, different John. And he said, hey, let's go to this billiard hall that I know. And it's really weird. And I said, okay, sure. So we were sort of half drunk at this time. And we got a tuk-tuk and we pounded our way. And all he knew was that it was one of the soys leading off Wong Wien Yip Song, which is sort of just west of the Hualampong train station there. And for anyone that knows, the neighborhood after dark is really weird. It's a really hard to pin down neighborhood because in the daytime it's got hip coffee shops and restaurants and industrial shop houses and factories and stuff. But at nighttime it's full of sort of like people sleeping on the sidewalks. Sure. It's got sort of famous for its low priced prostitutes.
Right. It's a sketchy area. Sketchy
neighbors, not dangerous, but it's weird. Yeah. And anyway, so we were like, it's on one of these soys, and I'm following John, and we're like, okay, and we go up one, and we're going into all these weird dark soys and alleys and like little sub soys, and we're like, this isn't it, it's a dead end, and there's someone's living room, and then we go to the next one, and there's a little shop house that's half open, and we finally find it, and he leads me into this elevator, and man, this elevator was like the original installation from the 50s, I'm sure. So it had like the old school buttons that were like white circles when you pushed them in and it sort of depressed, you know?
Oh, wow.
And the little button panel was half rusted away. Like if we pressed the button too hard, I'm sure it would have broke off.
Yeah, those old elevators, they really make you feel safe.
Yeah, and this elevator sort of ground to action, sort of like, and we went up 3 stories. And we came out into this giant room of this random building, and it was totally silent. There was no one there. And I thought, I'm like, oh, John led me to a place where he's going to kill me and rob me.
Right.
And there was one light on, and then we said, "Sawadee Kap," and we noticed there was a girl sleeping on this giant billiard table.
Oh, funny.
And she sort of was like, ugh, and we woke her up, and she sort of half rolled off and fell onto the floor. And she was like, "Kap, welcome." And she turned on the lights, and it was this huge billiard hall with all these like pro level billiard tables.
So you were the only people there?
The only people there. And she woke up and she called her friend, and she came out of a side room, and they turned on the lights. And, you know, about half an hour later, some other random people rolled in, but, they had to run down to 7-Eleven to get some beers, I think, because they were out of beers or something.
Oh, classic.
Beers. Like,
no,
we'll be right back.
That is a Thai thing when you order something and then they run out and buy it.
Yeah, they don't even say like we're out of stock. They're like, yeah, no problem, and then we run right back.
No, happened to me many times.
Yeah, and then within an hour there were some motorcycle guys come in, and they were playing billiards, and we were chatting with them in sort of like really bad Thai, and they were really bad English. And it was just a very, very odd night where I wasn't sure how it was going to end up, but I ended up playing billiards in this totally anonymous random billiards hall.
That's a very good Bangkok story, because there's so many weird places like that. It's funny, it wasn't billiards, but 2 weeks ago I ended up in a similar thing where a buddy was like, "Hey, I heard about this place," and again, it was Baksoys, and it was this tiny little, I don't even know what to call it. It was kind of like a Japanese hippie place with all this graffiti on the wall, and it was 3 a.m. And I'm just like, I never knew this existed. Like, Bangkok is great for these nooks and crannies.
Yeah, exactly. And I've tried to find this place in the years since. I've never found it again. I might have been hallucinating for all I know. Like, I've never been able to find it again.
Well, it sounds like my strange experience. We wake up the next day and you're like, did that happen? Was I there?
Yeah, it was very weird, but a good memory and a fun night.
All right. Well, very quickly, I'll tell I think what was my craziest night in Thailand. And this is a tough call because I've had plenty of the classic wild Bangkok nights, drinking and this happened and that happened.
Sure.
And this buddy does something crazy. I've had my share of those Bangkok nights, but this story just tops all in just the weirdness and oddness and fun, but also danger.
Okay.
And this is my Gau Samet story, which it's funny because I think this is one of the very first stories I ever told as the co-host of the podcast. So I can't remember. I can't remember why, but I think even with Evo, I think we did a kind of a preview show with Evo where you were like, Ed's going to be the new co-host. So it was the three of us, I believe.
Okay.
Does that ring a bell?
Yeah. I remember we did a show and we recorded it down at Jack's, right down on the river.
That's right.
That little hole in the wall place. I'm not sure when you told this story, but I think
it was one of my earliest stories I told because it was such a weird night. So I'll compress it down, but it basically involves going to Gau Samet with a friend of mine who had a girlfriend. So it was a couple, but then his girlfriend's friend was going to come, and so it ended up. There's a pair of us, even though I didn't know her. And I remember, telling him like, "Hey, don't hook us up. Like, I haven't even met her. I don't know who she is. Like, I want to be like free agent. When I'm down on the island,
right.
And then, when I met her, I thought she was nice, but didn't feel any vibes or anything like that. But then it was just one of those nights that it just gets a life of its own, where we went to dinner and it was fun and we started drinking and then we started dancing, and then pretty soon it's like you're kind of having a blast and
right.
It's like the night has taken off and we met other people down on Samet and we're having fun, and then my buddy who I was with, he wanted to go back to the room or something like that, and it ended up, and then he was gone for kind of a long time, so I went to go find him, and it turns out in his drunken stupor, he had the front desk was closed, and he had given the room key to the front desk, and he couldn't get it back, so he broke open the drawer in the front desk because he's this really smart, like sane person.
Brilliant.
And then some guys who worked at the resort confronted him, and basically correctly, because it's like 3 a.m. and this big drunk Swedish guy has like broken into the front desk, and I kind of walked in on this scene, and it ended up being like not quite a little bit of like a semi brawl, and then the guys left, and we called the police. So this is on Samet. We call the police, and this kid rides up on a bicycle who looks like he's about 17, but it turns out he was one of 2 Thai cops on the island.
Oh, wow.
And he through translation, he basically said that we have to leave that resort because these guys are going to come back and he cannot protect us.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was the craziest night. And so we basically had to gather all our stuff. Basically had to gather all of our stuff together and flee in a songtao away from this. And so we're driving down Samet it's probably like 3:30 in the morning. We're still drunk from the night, and we're trying to find a place where we can sleep.
Oh man.
And we're way down the island, and everything is closed. And so we just found a place that was clearly closed, and we just banged on the door, and the owner has to wake up and come out, and then he basically was pissed, and so he charged us twice the price for like the rooms. Because basically we're trying.
Right?
Basically we're trying to check in at 3:30 in the morning, and it was just an insane night.
That's got to fill you with confidence, right? When you call the cops and you're like, "Hey, these guys are going to come get us," and the cop is like, "Oh, good luck with that."
Yeah, no, I learned a lesson about the islands, and I'm not exaggerating. I think the kid probably was 20, but he was just skinny Thai kid. He looked like he was 17 riding a bicycle,
right?
And I ended up kind of liking him because he was very straightforward. He was like, "Look, you can't stay here because those guys are going to come back. And like, he's he's basically saying like, I can't, look at me. Like, I cannot protect you.
That is an interesting insight, though. I mean, Thai islands, they're sort of like their own little microcosm. Aren't they?
For
They've
sure.
each got their own personalities and their own people and their own families.
No, they're not. No, I mean, hopefully, this was quite a long time ago. So hopefully things have gotten better. But yeah, the islands are their own thing. And I think I guess I'll be direct about it. I think the islands are, on average, more corrupt than other places. I think they're more likely under the influence of local mafia than on the mainland.
Yeah, each one is like its own little fief.
That's right. Exactly. That's right. Anyway, it was probably the craziest night. Like, I've had other nights that were more fun, like with just more drunken partying thing.
Right.
But this was, in terms
That's
of just
funny.
In terms of weirdness and craziness, I think that night tops it for sure.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Well, if you and I are ever on Gulsonet together, I'm going to walk 10 paces behind you, just in case one of those guys recognizes
Yeah, you never know. They might remember me.
There he is. Get him. All right, let's do some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we discuss to decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as something that we just have to learn to live with, no matter how we feel about it. And this week, Ed, what do you got for me?
All right, this is kind of specific, but it just popped in my head due to a recent experience I had. So I'm just going to run with it. You know, I'm a live music guy. I love live music.
You're a live music guy and a rule of law guy.
I am, no doubt about that. So what's your take on this? You're going to listen to live music. It's a Thai band, Thai musicians, but they're playing Western music. You're into it. Good band. Vocalist starts singing, and they just have a strong Thai accent. So they're singing. It could be anything, whether it's country roads to a rock song to whatever. Band is good. Music is good. And then the singer, so you get, so in your head, the original, and then it has the noticeable Thai accent. What's your take? And I have a very clear stance on this, so I'm not going to give away what my thing is. Like, are you like, oh Jesus, you're ruining it, or are you like, well, what's your take? Does it bug you?
Yeah, I'm going to have to say I'm a live with on this one, because it's like, yeah, all right. If you can't sing really strongly, maybe you shouldn't be a singer. But also, you're up on stage heading a rock band, and I'm not, so that's still pretty cool. It's something I can't do. So it's sort of like when you pick up like an automated menu and you call a Thai company or something, and it's like,
oh right,
for something blah blah blah, play 2, and you're like, I can barely understand what you're saying. Like, if you're going to record the menu, exactly. Get someone who can speak English properly.
Well, it's funny. It's funny in that case, in your example, I'm a loathe, because I always think like, this is some big company and they clearly could get someone who had better English than that, or just get a native speaker.
Same. Yeah.
But
for bands, like, I mean, they're trying, they're hustling, they're trying something new. Maybe the guy's a new singer. I don't know.
It's funny. My take is almost exactly like yours. I might even be a borderline love, because
really?
Yeah, it's just, okay, I remember when I very, very first experienced this, I had a negative reaction, because it just doesn't sound right. You're so used to a certain song. And even though when you hear a cover, let's say in the States, they're not singing it as well as the original, right. But because it's the first language, it fits, or it's closer, and they can emulate it better. So I admit that initially it's off-putting to hear a classic song or something really well in a foreign accent. It's off-putting, right?
Right.
So because it obviously doesn't sound right.
I agree. Yeah. It like takes you out of it, right?
That's right. But over time, I just kind of like it now. Like, it's kind of like
Really?
you said it's just kind of cool that they're trying. I mean, they're playing your music. I mean, in our case, this is Western music, and they like it. So I'm not even talking about, I'm not talking about some tourist cover band. These are local Thai musicians,
right?
Who love Western music, and over the years, I've just come to appreciate the fact that they like it. And so when I hear a Thai person with a Thai accent, I almost kind of like it. It's just it's almost like kind of cute to hear. You know what I'm saying? To hear that Thai accent. on a Western song.
You got to respect it because they're like, oh, okay, well, why don't you get up here and sing a song in Thai? Oh, what's that? You can't? Oh, all right. Well, then how about you shut your mouth?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So I'm a live with, but it totally doesn't bother me anymore, and I have a much better attitude. I just think it's just great that they're trying, and more power to them. I'm
down with that. Live with a healthy dose of respect.
For sure. Excellent. We agree.
Nice one.
Alrighty, a final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Yeah, baby. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that we'll feature on the show. Hit me up on Threads at BKKGreg. Thanks for listening, everyone. Turn those air cons up or down, whatever it is. Make them colder. And we'll see you back here next week.
No doubt.